Alrighty, everyone. I have with me today Shawnee Kelly. She's a dietitian and she's an assistant teaching professor and coordinator in the master's program at Penn State University. And I'd like to welcome her, and she is going to talk to us about letters of recommendation for graduate school and beyond. So Shawnee, welcome so much for being here. We're very excited to have you.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Tell me your full title. Did I include everything in your title?
Yeah, I think so. I'm an assistant teaching professor and primarily teaching now in our online graduate program, which is what we'll talk more about today, as well as the coordinator of the master's program. So I work closely with the director.
So how I got to know you, Shawnee, was through a series of emails and conversations we've had together, but also through a recent webinar that you gave outlining what the program is. And I found it super interesting, but something popped out while you were giving your webinar, and you brought up the topic of getting letters of recommendation. And I thought, oh my goodness, that is a topic that dietitians-to-be really need to hear from the perspective of somebody who's looking at those applications. So tell us, how important are letters of recommendation for your graduate school application?
Yeah, for our program, it is a really important element. There are several pieces to the application, between transcripts and GPA we're looking at, personal statement and resume. But I think, especially with our graduate program being online, we can't always connect with students in person like you might expect in a traditional program. So the letters of reference really help us get to know the candidate from another perspective, someone they've worked closely with, hopefully. So our admissions committee do really rely heavily on those letters when evaluating applicants for the program. So it's a really important piece.
That's good to know. So this question comes up a lot. So if people are in school already and they're transitioning to a master's program, they're going to apply to it and transition into it. They've already got a lot of professors sort of available to them that remember them, that know their work, know their value, and can obviously tap into those individuals. What about people who have been out in the workforce for a while? What do you recommend for those individuals applying?
Well, with our program, we like to keep it open. We need 3 references, but we don't define what they have to be. And what's most important to us is the letter writer knows that person well. So people that have been out in the workforce, they're going to probably have a better reference from an employer, a supervisor, a manager, someone they've directly worked with fairly recently or currently than trying to go back 5 or 10 years to a professor. So we really don't require a faculty member unless that makes sense for that candidate and that faculty member can really speak to them very, very well. So that's how I usually approach it and explain it for students.
Yeah, that sounds good. So is there a template that potential students can use to sort of craft their reference, or that they can give to their professor or their employer or the valuable person that's going to be providing this?
Specific to our program or just in general?
Both, maybe both.
Okay. There's nothing specific for our program. From the program standpoint, we have a graduate school application that just simply requires the prospective student, to enter the contact information of the reference. And like many graduate school, professional school systems nowadays, it's all automated. So that person will receive, an automated email from our system asking them and explaining to them how to access it and asking them to upload the letter of reference. Beyond that, it's not a template. I mean, I think possibly there are templates out there, but from a general standpoint, when I used to work with undergraduates who are applying to internships and jobs, I would always just recommend that they had a little list, maybe a templated email of their own, and a list of things that person, they could provide that person. And everyone has their specific preferences too, so you have to throw that in there. I always like to receive the student's current resume, what they were asking of me in that email, such as here's where I'm applying, here's when it is due, and maybe any highlights that would be specific to a program that I would need to know. And then I would always like to see their personal statement or their personal letter. Some schools call that a slightly different thing. Or just a blurb in the email about what they think their strengths and weaknesses are, that kind of thing. So those three big things were what I like to receive as far as, I don't know if that answers the template question directly, but
that's great. I think
it's a format to follow.
Exactly, a format to follow so that the person providing the letter of recommendation can be successful, and it doesn't have to be this big research project on their part, having to look up the resume or, like you said, looking up their personal statement or any of the courses they had. So I think, yeah, as you mentioned, like having as much information for the person writing so that you get a flattering letter of recommendation, but one that speaks specifically to your qualifications and your intent.
It's individualized.
Yeah, exactly. Individualized, but also so that you make it less painful for the person who's having to do it. 'Cause I'm sure professors get a lot of requests.
We do. And I would always ask the student, take your time, gather it all, and send it to me in one email. And keep it organized out, even if you're applying to, it's not uncommon for a student to apply to 6 or 7 dietetic internships.
Right.
And so just organize it, send it in one email.
And
multiple attachments is okay.
How far in advance do you recommend students get started on curating their recommendations and then sort of sending out that request?
I don't think it's ever too soon. But then sometimes you don't always know where you're applying. But I always liked, a month at minimum, I would say, heads up.
Yeah, I like that.
If the student gave me more, that was fine. And I could just mark my calendar, like do this a little later.
Yeah.
But that's nice because you know how quickly the months fly by.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I have a sort of a blooper question for you. Have you ever seen any unflattering letters of recommendation, and give your thoughts on that?
I have, very few and far between. When I used to help evaluate for our dietetic internship, I saw one, which is unfortunate. You wonder why those situations happen and why the letter writer agreed. Although it helps the committee, but there's a lot of bias, in everything we do. So as letter writers, we have to think about that, and agreeing to letters that we only feel we can write that are strong is important for our own selves. But I think it just goes back to picking someone that well enough, you trust the relationship that you have with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've also seen not negative letters, but just letters that are too general.
Very general. Right. Okay.
Yeah. Like you can tell it's just kind of like glanced over. It's not super personalized or individualized. And that's really just not that helpful. Right. It's not hurtful, but it's not as helpful to the committee when we're trying to get to know the applicant and get, the perspectives of these other people. When it's just sort of a templated, you can tell if it's a templated written letter.
Oh, interesting. Right. Okay. That's good. So that just speaks to having a good relationship with the person that you're asking to do the letter of recommendation. Yeah. Okay. That sounds good. Can you tell us a little bit about the master's program at Penn State University?
Yep. We actually have a graduate program that has several degrees. We have a Master's of Science in Residence, but the program that I work with and teach in is an online Master's of Professional Studies rather than a Master's of Science. And we're a partnership with the World Campus, which is an online learning, branch here at Penn State. So our program is really tailored towards specifically nutrition and dietetics versus just nutrition science. And we focus on advanced practice skills. So if you've ever heard of an MPS degree, which are popping up more popular across the country, it's very industry oriented. So for us specifically, we're looking at what dietitians are doing in the field today. Right now, all the cutting edge research, all the new evidence-based practice guidelines, and keeping that at the forefront of all of our classes so that students coming in, they may already be practicing at a pretty high level, but we can kind of help them get to that next level with their degree to build upon the undergraduate foundation and maybe the years of work experience that they've had. And it's all very, saying hands-on sounds kind of funny in an online program, but it is very user-friendly and hands-on, and all the projects are meaningful in that they're helping you build a skill set to take right to your workplace.
Great. Oh, that's fantastic. And I know quite a bit about the program, and I know that you have a big emphasis on leadership skills and
Mm-hmm.
preparing dietitians for having a voice at the conference room table,
Yes, yes.
wherever that voice might need to be spoken. I think that's a big
Mm-hmm.
part of the
It
Penn
is.
program.
Yeah, we have a bit of a generalist curriculum in that there's core courses in all of the key areas of dietetics practice, but it does really focus on leadership with some specific courses in leadership as well as threads of that theme and emphasis all through the other courses. So yeah, we want students to feel, when they're leaving the program confident and empowered to have a voice, whether it be on a committee at work, if they're a leader without authority in a sense, or if they're looking to move into a management or director role, entrepreneurial role, whatever that may be for them.
Yeah, good, good. Oh, Shawnee, this has been so great, so informative,
Great.
super helpful. I always like to end with, is there one action item that you can give potential applicants, something they can do with regard to their letter of recommendation or their references? Or is there something they can sort of take care of today, right away, that can make them more successful?
Yeah, I mean, you asked a question earlier that made me think of this too, which is when should students really start curating these references? And I think it all starts with networking and curating your relationships with your professors or with your boss at work. So there's no time soon enough. Networking is just so important for all of us. And I love when students try to reach out to me and stay connected with me and tell me what they're doing 5 years down the road. And I think sometimes students think we don't want to hear that because we're busy, but that's probably the most rewarding thing. So I guess my tip is just keep networking. Don't lose touch with your professors. Don't be afraid to meet with your boss once or twice a year and just talk about your performance and how you can improve that relationship. So when it does come time for a letter of reference or that next step to grad school or whatever that is, and you need it, you already have that relationship there and you don't have to feel any kind of lack of confidence about getting a high quality letter.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's such great information. Thank you so much, Shawnee. And
Thanks, Stacy.
yeah, this was great information. Really appreciate it.
You're
Okay, bye.
welcome.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.